on? Cindy, the news is on. Another little white girl done fell down the well. 50 black people get their ass beat by police today, but the whole world gotta stop for one little whitey down the hole. Cindy? The TV's leaking.
Welcome back, fans and friends, to the Complete Guide to Horror Movies podcast. Today, we are discussing Scary Movie 3, the third entry into the Scary Movie franchise, and personally, my favorite one.
Turn it off! It's not working! It's backwards! What do I do?
And this movie, unfortunately, was the first one to not have any involvement with the Wayans brothers, so Keenan Ivory Wayans didn't come back as a director. We also lose Ray and Shorty, who were in the first two movies.
Ain't that a bitch?
And the reason for that is very complex, and we'll discuss that in the trivia section.
I sure hope so, Cindy.
This is my favorite scary movie out of all of them, but it closely ties with the first one as to what I want to rewatch from time to time, but there's so many little funny parts in this one. I feel it's so much more stupider. It's so much funnier. And I saw this at the movies with my older sister when I was 11 or 12 at the time.
Wait, Cindy!
I've never laughed so much. Like, the only other movie I can compare this to is the original Scary Movie. So this feels like a huge return to form after the slightly disappointing second installment.
Well, this just isn't going to work now, is it?
It is, yeah, a massive step up from the second Scary Movie. It's not personally, it's not my favorite, but I mean, there's so much to love about it as well. I remember us quoting this at school so often. Like, it was probably the main thing that we would quote this in the sketch show just all day long at Nambucca Primary. So very fond memories of this movie. Always a pleasure to come back and watch it. But there's also a few things that I don't like that we'll get to as well. So yeah,
Escandalo. What about yourself, BP? Do you have any overall thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely a step up from number 2. It's a step in the right direction. I think the absence of the Wayans brothers maybe in some ways is missed, but I think also they kind of have a leg to do their own thing here, and I think they do a pretty good job at it. I mostly like it. I think it is also a very commercial film to enjoy out of the series, and I think they chose really good movies to parody in this one compared to number 2 at least.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Anna Faris in this, I think, has a lot of just good scenes that kind of have that ditzy character of hers, which she does really well.
Brenda, it was Mardi Gras. I never drank vodka before, and I was out of beads.
No, not that tape, Cindy.
Definitely an improvement over 2. And at this point, I will say this is sort of the peak of then the decline of what's sort of soon to happen of sorts. So I feel like this is kind of like one of the last goodies in the series, unfortunately. But yeah, still pretty good.
A News 8 exclusive. The killer videotape you've been hearing about. We're the only station that has it, and we're showing it all night. Very exciting. Let's roll it again.
I feel you're 100% right about that too, because after Scary Movie 3, it was then Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans. There's there's a whole Fast and Furious parody called Super Fast, which I watched. It wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be, but it still doesn't hold a candle to like Scary Movie 1 and 3. There's so many little parts to this which are just so funny to me and probably not funny to anyone else. And they form my favorite parts. Like, for instance, the part where Cindy's looking at the computer, then the boat horn scares her, and she's on the boat. It's not funny, but I fucking lose it every time I see it. Or even when she's like walking into Aunt Shaniqua's house, and Aunt Shaniqua's like, "And don't worry about that vase," and she's like, "Oh, sorry," and then the vase falls on top of her, and Aunt Shaniqua's like, "That vase." Just so many parodies of even non-horror movies, like The Matrix, which was done to death by 2003. Like, did you know The Matrix had a Christmas special, and that there was also the Animatrix? It was I knew
about the Animatrix and Enter the Matrix, which was the PS2 game, which there was also like scenes shot like just for that as well. So yeah.
God, I remember The Matrix was everywhere. Like 2002, 2003, it was insane. But then there's just other little funny parts, like when they're watching the videotape, and she's like, "It looks like a cigarette." I was going to say that.
Oh yeah, because she's psychic, doesn't she? It kind of gets really annoying. Yeah.
So can you tell me about
The tape?
Yes, I watched it and
The
then...
phone rang.
Right, and then this voice said...
That you would die in 7 days.
Okay, that's getting...
Extremely annoying.
I'll be at work, and then I'll have time to think about something and look up and just have a chuckle to myself, and that would be that. But you tell someone that, they'll be like, "How's that funny?" You'd be like, "Oh, you had to be there."
I do that all the time. I'll be I did this the other day. I was grocery shopping, pushing a trolley by myself, and I thought about the part at the start of this movie where it's like they answer the phone, and she's like, "Yeah, big house, only one phone." And then it's the weird voice being like, "I'm coming for you." Hi, Mom. And I'm walking around this Coles in Lakemba just being like, not realizing someone's watching me, and they're probably thinking I'm laughing at them. And it's like, no, sorry, I'm thinking about a 20-year-old parody movie. Like,
Who's this?
That's Ralph. He's right over there.
Another strong opening with this one. Pamela Anderson checking on the severed head of her friend will never not be funny.
Katie? Are you okay? Are you okay?
The scene that both BP and myself have as our background, and the hats, the wonderful, wonderful hats that we are wearing right now. That is, classic. I mean, that's one of those scenes that should be like preserved in the comedy museum or something. It's absolutely classic.
There's always an explanation for all this so-called phenomenon.
Maybe you're right. It's probably just the Creasels.
And when I get through with them, I doubt you'll be seeing anything strange on this farm for a long time. We'll see. You all right, Tom? Get some rest.
Rap scene part is hilarious with the whole like, all right, everybody turn your safeties on and like all that shit. Is fucking heaps good. When the hood comes in to save the day and just end up killing each other.
I can't believe what I just saw.
These men died for their country. Send flowers to their bitches and hoes.
Selfie in a hospital bed to get social media attention.
Sorry. What the fuck was that?
Don't really want to get into it.
You're watching Family Guy, man.
Don't really want to get into it. Anyway, Scott's hair.
Last thing I wanted on it.
Sorry, it was Facebook for some reason on my phone.
Okay.
I was like, what
You're right,
the fuck
Tom.
is... I was like, is my room haunted or some shit? Sorry to cut you off, Coop.
No, all good. What else? I like how they were making fun of signs. The attack here, crop circle,
the arrow,
crop text. The footage, where there's always like dogs humping every time an alien is there. Yeah, there's just lots of classic shit in this. Brenda fighting Tabitha is so good. Yeah, lots to love.
Cindy, this bitch is messing up my floor. Cindy, help me!
I'm not listening.
Get up, you little ugly bitch. Come on, let me see what you got. What you gonna do? That's all. Ooh, I'm whipping her ass, Cindy. Yeah.
Tabitha was an evil girl. Killed our puppies, poisoned the horses, hid the remote. Real sick shit.
Hit the remote on it. Oh god.
This part always makes me die as well. It's the part where Cindy realizes that the barn is where they kept Tabitha the whole time because she sees the ladder. And then she bumps into the thing of marbles, and then all the marbles fall down. Then all the fruit comes in and gets bigger and bigger.
The melon.
I still die when I see that because every time I watch The Ring, it's always that part where it's like Naomi Watts knocks over the marbles, and like this is a bit of a Mandela effect. I could have sworn, like the first couple of times I watched The Ring, when the marbles fall over, it forms an arrow that like points to the well, but it doesn't. It's just a random stack of marbles. So I don't know why the fuck I thought that.
Insane.
I mean, I went insane since I was like born, but yeah, I was just like, what the fuck? Why do I misremember that? Also, just that part where it's Charlie Sheen in the car and he's like, hey, and being told that he's killed. Your wife is this. I don't understand this fancy medical lingo. so fucking stupid. But BB, do you have any favorite parts of Scary Movie 3?
Yeah, as I said, there's quite a few funny scenes in this movie, and it's like a return to like the first one and just the way it's executed. So like as Coop said, this scene's just hilarious because it's just the fact that there's no CGI. Literally, she's just putting a hat between the scenes of Charlie Sheen and her talking, and that it just gets so big. And then when she's trying to get in the car, she's obviously struggling, and he's like, "You're right, Tom." And then, yeah, the crash scene I love because, as I said earlier, it's like he's walking along to his wife, and then the guy that like obviously caused the accident's like, "Hey, Tom, I'm gonna need a ride." And it's just like, okay. And then when she's like pinned against the tree and then she's like, no more sex. He's like, oh, go to the light. Like tries to shut her eyes. and then the headlight goes out. And it's, I love the Ring video. I always crack up at that. Even just like when she's brushing her hair and then she's just... And then you know when it's like the flies on the screen and then goes back and then the girl's like brushing hair like we did talk about when Cindy gets the phone call from like the 7 days and she's like, how do you spell that? And then she's like yeah. and then it's like, hi, this is Stu from Reader's Digest. I want to talk to Tommy. And then she's like, okay.
Hello, I'm calling from Reader's Digest with a fantastic offer for Cody.
No, you're not! You're that evil little girl from the tape!
Okay, you got me. How about I just leave a message for him?
Fine. Yeah. Okay, how do you spell that? Right. Okay, got it. Bye-bye.
The one thing we haven't spoken about, which I think only starts in this one, it's that continuity that happens in number 4. And I think it's in this one where, it's the two, it's like the Kevin Hart guy and the other guy, and they always agree. He's like, if you go missing in like thin air, then doesn't that mean you were already there to start with? Do you know when they had that like little disagreement? Yeah.
What if we stop living down here and move over there?
Yeah. It's like, how do you wake up dead? Yeah. I like even those are the things. It's like kind of stupid, but it's like hilarious because you see it in number 4 right there. Yeah. I think it's just they do a good job of the ring aspect in this. I think they do a really good interpretation of it. And even when Brenda's like, and when Brenda's pretending to like froth at the mouth and
I got you with the old fake hair.
And she's like, Cindy, the TV's leaking.
That comically large thing of ice cream's heaps good as well.
That's pretty much it. There's a lot of funny parts of this film. Yeah.
There are so many that we haven't even touched on because this movie just has such a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Like joke after joke after joke. Like even the dumbest thing, like in the opening scene where the fridge door swings open and it's parodying The Ring where Amber Tamblin's character just shuts the fridge and that's it. But Pamela Anderson is like really struggling to close the fridge because it keeps opening at her. Or even like Brenda's funeral where her parents are like, oh, she looks so peaceful. And she's like, it's so dumb.
If only God had taken us instead of our daughter.
And knowing your Brenda like I did, I'd say she wishes the same thing.
These are the photos that she took of the trip, and Cindy's like, they're Blake. Turn them around, honey. Oh, they're like, and Cindy's like, who's this? And they're like, that's Ralph. He's over there, and he's got the same twisted face.
Oh god, that's funny. It's just like the little things that make this movie.
Yeah. I'm just going to say the running time. I feel like it could have been longer. This feels like a movie where you press play and then it almost finishes too soon because you're having such a good time laughing at everything.
Yeah.
That's just like, maybe even like an extra 10 minutes would have helped do it justice. I felt that the parodies that they chose were so spot on, especially for the target market. Like, these are going to be teens, people in their early 20s. So, 2003, I remember the biggest movies were The Ring, or even for non-horror stuff, like 8 Mile with Eminem and Brittany Murphy was such a huge phenomenon out of nowhere. And, of course, stoners are going to go and watch Scary Movie 3. So they were very wise in doing all the 8 Mile parodies, but they were also really funny. Like the rap battles, Simon Cowell makes a cameo appearance, even when they're making fun of 8 Mile, where in the original movie, Eminem gets really nervous, so he throws up in the toilet. And in Scary Movie 3, he throws up on the other guy, and the guy's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Or when they're in 8 Mile, they do the paintball guns throughout the streets. And in Scary Movie 3, Kevin Hart's like throwing out the buckets of paint. It's just so dumb. But maybe if it just had maybe one more horror movie to parody, but at the same time, like I'm really grasping at straws trying to find something that I personally dislike about this. So, Coop, maybe you can help me out here. Do you have any least favorite parts of Scary Movie 3?
Yeah, it's something that starts in this movie and then kind of gets worse and worse as the franchise goes on. I reckon that the use of slapstick in this is like a bit over the top in this movie, and just the way that they do it. And then, moving forward, that's something that just gets worse and worse throughout the franchise. And it starts in this movie, so that's like a big gripe with me. Like almost all of the slapsticky bits, particularly with the kid flying and getting hit in the head and all that shit's a bit like it becomes really tedious really quickly in this movie.
Attaboy.
There's also that part where she's in the newsroom at the start and she's like, I sense evil. I can tell where danger is near. Then she just runs into the microphone. And I'm just like, I don't really think that's like too funny, but they marketed that one scene in like every fucking trailer.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm just like, there's so many more funny things. Why focus on that one boring ass scene? But
like, it should have just been like when it's like coming soon, and then like the boat horn scene. That would have been hilarious.
Yeah, like just anything else, but meh. What about yourself, BP? Do you have any least favorite parts?
Not particularly. I think it would have been interesting if the Wayans brothers had their way, like if this film was outright and then they had their way to kind of finesse it. It would have been interesting to see what they would have added to it, because it's definitely an upgrade from 2, but it's definitely a downgrade from 1. And I still kind of feel like something is like slightly missing, maybe just the whole continuity of the film. Or like Coop said, number 4 has a lot of tedious bits, which Coop touched on really well in this movie, but number 3, I can kind of understand where Coop's coming from. It's sort of like a new sort of imagining of scary movie. I don't think it's not top tier, but this is something stopping it, but I don't really know what it is. It could just be it's lost that magic that 2 kind of had, because it still had the Wayans brothers in it, but even though 2 was really bad, and 1 had, because the Wayans brothers had that full control. So I think it's kind of lost a little bit of that magic, but I still think it's good. But nothing really that was kind of, personally, like the rap scene, I didn't really care for, I guess, because I didn't really ever watch 8 Mile, so it wasn't sort of something I kind of understood. So I felt like it kind of went on maybe a little bit too long, but the ring stuff was really good. So a couple of scenes here and there, but nothing that's really standing out as a major drawback.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point too about 8 Mile, because even though it was a big phenomenon, I don't think if you were like swept up in the craze of like idolizing Eminem, back in the early 2000s and didn't watch 8 Mile, there would have been a lot of scenes that probably didn't make sense. Like when like the rap battle, when he's throwing the paint at people on the streets, like that, it would have been funny anyway, but it was so hilarious to me because I had watched 8 Mile before this. So I'm like, oh, I get what they're parodying.
It's interesting that you say that, because I wonder if they thought Eminem would have obviously been like probably the biggest selling musician at the time, let alone rapper. So I wonder if they just thought, oh, this is going to work for a horror movie, or if they went, oh, people that like horror movies listen to rappers. Like, it would have been interesting to sort of why it was put in to start with, because it's just commercially a successful movie that they thought will kind of rub off into a horror movie. But I feel like 8 Mile doesn't really have a place in Scary Movie 3 for me personally. I kind of think something else could have filled that void. But like for you guys that have kind of watched the movie and understand it, it's funny to you. But me watching it, I'm not really getting it. But yeah, I guess it's a different target. But it's just interesting that implementation that they've got, like what they've got the ring in this. They've got 8 Mile, Signs. Any other ones?
I know that there's a couple more.
Yeah. So there's not really like a lot. It's kind of really like 3 in this. Matrix.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But Matrix is what, like
Matrix, 8 Mile are the main ones.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, 8 Mile, but yeah, I mean, still works. So
yeah. I mentioned at the start of this episode that it was supposed to be more primarily Matrix influence. So there's entire scenes which I'm not sure if they're on the DVD or Blu-ray release, but they're definitely up on YouTube, and I'll link them in the description. But there's like entire scenes where it's like Cindy's in the full Matrix outfit. She fights a whole army of Tabithas. And then after she's done, she like flies up, hits her head on a post or something. And it's not really funny. It's just like, okay. It's that slapstick element again, but it's not really done effectively. Likewise, there's alternative endings, including where George turns into the Hulk, and then and that's in Scary Movie 3.5. And there's like other deleted scenes included in that as well, like a extended opening where Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy. It's like a huge extended thing, and they're like, something. Oh, what about my shaved pussy? And then she holds up a hairless cat. She's like, nobody gets Snowball or something. And it's like, I get it. It's just like, it's just not funny. So I see why they cut that. And I'm just glad that there was some studio interference with this movie, which I never thought I'd ever say about a movie. But yeah, and probably the worst and most horrifying trivia about this is the fact that, what does it say? On November 22, 2002, Dimension Films announced a third scary movie without the Wayans brothers, which we'll get into after. The movie was given the title Scary Movie 3, Episode 1, Lord of the Brooms, and the movie was supposed to make fun of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter. And Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer, who eventually went on to do Date Movie and all the other shitty parody movies that aren't funny, they were going to write it, and David Zucker was going to shoot that script, but eventually decided not to use it. Thank fucking God, because how is it supposed to be a scary movie if it's making fun of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter? Like, what the fuck? Just, how does that even make sense?
Yeah.
But then there's a whole issue where, so the Wayans, the Wayans brothers, so that includes Keenan Ivory, who directed the first two, plus Marlon and Shawn, who played Ray and Shorty in the first two movies. They were supposed to come back for Scary Movie 3, but Keenan Ivory wanted more of a longer time frame to write, produce, edit this movie. He wasn't even told officially that he was being let go from the franchise. He found out after reading it in a 2002 sales stocks Hollywood Report thing. And so like the Weinsteins, who, you know, owned Dimension Films at the time, they just cut them out of all future profits or like credits, everything like that. So they're not credited for Scary Movie 3, 4, and 5, even though they use characters that they wrote. So they're like withholding royalties. They've decided to just scrap them completely. I mean, surely it's like a standard practice. You'd at least pay them to use like the characters of Cindy, Brenda. No other characters from the first two are in this, but I don't know, it just feels very shit and unfair. And, you know, if there was going to be a Scary Movie 6, I would like to see it where it's like the Wayans brothers plus David Zucker, because I feel like they actually make, you know, if they combined each other, maybe we would get like a really great middle ground between Scary Movie 1 and 3 without all the stupid slapstick elements. Or if it's going to use slapstick, it's used sparingly and effectively. But hey, who knows? I mean, it's been 10 years since Scary Movie 5, so who knows what's going to happen. There's also just some other trivia on Anthony Anderson, his character Malik, who turned out so popular in test screenings that he actually shot additional scenes while the movie was still in post-production. So, yeah, part of that dynamic with the you can't go to bed dead and wake up alive. Like, I love all that stuff. As we all know, the opening scene where Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy are discussing what happens on the tape, Jenny McCarthy starts talking about a boat and a car, which is a reference to Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's infamous sex tape that was stolen and released online. This is a bit of a weird trivia. This was the only Scary movie to be nominated for a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award.
Is this the one where they get slimed?
Yeah, probably.
It's like Katy Perry getting blasted in the face with slime.
I love that kid.
Of course it's her that fucking gets that, isn't it?
Continuing the trend from the first two movies, so they do make fun of commercials in this one, and it's that one with the and twins, and then out of nowhere it's just that whole dance sequence in the office. But this was actually a Coors Light beer ad, which I've never seen and never will, and they've actually got two twins, Diane and Elaine, and they reprise their roles as a twins. I didn't really get it.
You'll have to edit in footage of Jinx on the pit stop being like, and twins.
Yes.
and twins.
Remember that commercial?
No.
And twins! You remember it now that she said it again?
Nope, repeat it one more time.
It was a beer commercial, and they were like, and twins!
Simon Cowell has since regretted making an appearance in this movie. He admitted that he was embarrassed to see himself on film, but he probably made, like, I don't know, 500 grand just from appearing in it for, like, what, 20 seconds?
I think that scene was like funny because the only other scene I've seen that is like Meet the Spartans when it's like Randy Jackson and that. Like, yeah, it's like, what do we think, Judge? Yeah. Paul is like,
That's so good.
I think it's funny there. I think it's funny with him, and it's like absolutely disgusting whatever he says. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like the height of American Idol's popularity. Like that show was like that show used to screen in Australia. What the fuck? Why do we care so much about American shit?
Yeah.
But on the last day of filming, Anna Faris was actually hit in the face by the airport cart prop, but was unscathed. I don't remember an airport cart prop. Maybe this is supposed to be for Scary Movie 4, this little bit of trivia.
No idea.
I don't remember it playing in. Oh well. Anyway. A lengthy alternative ending was shot but later scrapped, and that ending included what was on Scary Movie 3.5, where it turns out Cody isn't real and Cindy was just imagining him, and all the stuff around the Matrix Reloaded bullshit, which thankfully got scrapped as well.
Wait a minute, you mean the woman that whipped the entire world into a frenzy is nuts?
We don't say nuts anymore. It's demeaning.
Thank you.
We prefer mentally ill, or in this case, completely batshit.
Coming full circle with the Scream franchise again. So Jenny McCarthy appears in this movie in the opening scene, as we've discussed, because she turned down a role in the original Scary Movie to appear in Scream 3. So, I don't know, it seems like it's always linked, these two movies.
I don't understand the connection between all that stuff.
Simon Rex, who plays George, is actually a rapper who goes by the name Dirt Nasty, so he's actually a rapper in real life. I wonder if he also raps like Ning, Bing, Wing.
Should, would, could.
Good, dig, bug.
Good mug, dug, bug.
Oh, if we say we'll come, will you shut your ass up?
When Cindy, so the part before the boat horn transition, when she's searching about Morton Lighthouse, there are several pop-ups that appear on screen, but one is not an ad. It says, this may sound overly simplified, but high interest rates eventually cause low interest rates, and conversely, low interest rates eventually lead to high interest rates with a yellow background. That's really
I feel like that's a you, Justin thing. Justin, you would do that.
Oh, I definitely would. I'm just like, why is this in trivia?
Yeah.
Oh, you think I'm crazy, don't you?
Of course I do. But the last thing you need now is a screw-up like me.
Anthony Anderson, who of course was in this one and Scary Movie 4, he would later appear in Scream 4. He's the cop that gets stabbed in the head and he says, fuck Bruce Willis. So, again, it's always tied.
DJ, spin that shit!
So the scene where someone throws crayons at the door and then Brenda says, now who the fuck did that? It was one of the only 2 times that they were allowed to get away with saying a swear word to get the PG-13 rating. Otherwise, it's some stupid rule where it's like if you swear more than 3 times or have too much violence, it would have been upgraded to an R rating in America. So, I guess they got away with PG-13 in that aspect.
That.
I'm going to be very controversial and give this movie 10 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Again, yes, I know. I'm just giving out all the 10s today, but no, this is a movie that I absolutely fucking loved as a kid, as an adult, as a teenager, as a 30-year-old. I just think this is one movie that I'm probably going to watch every couple of years till the day I die. I think it's so underrated, so funny. I do recognize its flaws and that maybe in another 10 years, like more humor will date over time. But for now, I'm just going to continue to watch this one and Scary Movie, the original one. Yeah. Coop, what about yourself? What would you give this movie out of 10?
I'm gonna give this 7 growing sheriff hats. 10.
Nice. And BP?
I'll give it 7.5 boat horns out of 10.
Also, I'm just thinking about that boat horn thing. I wonder why they didn't parody the ring part where she's on the boat and the horse like jumps over her and gets like killed in the water.
Oh yeah.
Like I was waiting.
I
was waiting for something like that to happen, and then it's just like the transition where she goes onto the island and she pays for the parking. It's a dessert. So dumb. So even with my high score, the average works out to be 8 out of 10, which I think is fair. So yeah, I mean, it's better than whatever the average was for Scary Movie 2.
What is this? Oh my God. Well, it was a long winter.
I feel like some of the humor has been dated, but it's more to do with like the slapstick elements or like the over-reliance on using like weed as a funny thing, but that same criticism is for the first 2 movies as well. But, you know, I have very little to talk shit about this movie with. Coop, what about yourself? Do you have any final thoughts?
I think it's a good entry in the franchise. Yeah, as we said, big step up from number 2. I would agree with BP that it's a step down from number 1 though. And yeah, as I mentioned, the sort of slapstick aspects of it kind of like give me the shits a little bit. But it is a good watch, very quotable, enjoyable movie. And yeah, unlike number 2, I wouldn't skip this one. So yeah.
Nice. And BP, last but not least, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good return to form for the series at this point. Yeah, it's an entertaining movie. It is very quotable. They obviously parody really good horror movies in this. I think they do a really good job at it. Unfortunately, for most viewers out there, they would probably perceive this as like the last of the best, the last good scary movie in the franchise, because from here it starts to go downhill, unfortunately, personally. But yeah, it's still a good watch. Vast improvement over number 2. Not as good number 1, but still pretty good entry for, 3 out of 5 movies in.
Yeah. Nice. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. Next week, we will also discuss Scary Movie 4, the parody that makes fun of War of the Worlds, makes fun of The Grudge, and Saw, one of the best horror franchises of all time, just saying. Like, subscribe, comment, share, duet, TikTok, Stitch, whatever the terms are. And who knows, maybe we'll have a Threads account by that time, but honestly, I don't really want to create another platform. Check us out if you'd like to see more episodes, and if you hated this episode,
You want hard-hitting stories and in-depth coverage and
twins. Parties that never end. Talks that